You know that question, why are you still single? It's a weirdly modern question, isn't it? And it's so loaded. It just assumes that being single is some kind of problem, something you need to fix. But was it always like this? Let's dig in and unpack how we got here.
If you rewind just a few decades, say to 1990, being single was, well, it was just a thing, a neutral fact of life. But fast forward to today, and it's framed as this urgent problem you need to solve. The message is everywhere. You should be actively trying to get out of this situation.
So, what gives? How did we go from singleness being just a normal part of life to being seen as this personal failure that you have to justify to people at family dinners? And here's the really wild part, the paradox of it all. Half of all American adults are single right now. It is statistically the norm, and yet it has never felt more stigmatized. It's like the more common it becomes, the more pressure there is to avoid it. It just doesn't add up. And this is the core idea we're going to explore. This anxiety, this nagging feeling that something is wrong with you for being single, it wasn't an accident. It didn't just happen. It was deliberately built by some pretty powerful forces outside of ourselves. So let's start our investigation where you usually find the answers. Let's follow the money. We're about to uncover some massive economic and structural reasons that are all designed to push you into a couple, whether you realize it or not. Okay, just look at this number, 30%. To have the exact same standard of living as their coupled up friends, a single person needs to earn about a third more. I mean, that's not a small gap. That is a huge structural penalty for not having a partner. In this penalty, it shows up everywhere. In housing, a single person is covering 100% of the rent or mortgage. In taxes, you get way better rates for filing jointly. Even healthcare is cheaper per person on a family plan. It's basically a singles tax that's woven right into the fabric of our economy. And here's why, plain and simple. Couples are better customers. They buy bigger houses, they take on mortgages, they get car loans, they fill those houses with furniture, appliances, you name it. From a purely business perspective, they are just more predictable and profitable consumers. But money pressure is only half the battle. To really make this stick, the culture itself had to be rewritten. The whole story had to change to transform being single from just a life choice into a deep, personal, psychological flaw. You can actually see this shift happen over time. Back in the 80s, the single person was often this cool, aspirational figure. The independent career woman or the free-spirited bachelor. But by the 2000s, pop psychology had reframed them as damaged, calling them commitment phobes. And now we have the anxious single, constantly being reminded of their status by technology. And there's a word for this, pathologization. It's a bit of a mouthful, but all it really means is that being single stopped being a circumstance and started being treated like a diagnosis. A whole industry of self-help books, therapy, and TV shows popped up to fix what was supposedly wrong with you for being alone. And for women, this pressure got weaponized through the whole narrative of the biological clock. All of a sudden, fertility wasn't just a biological fact of life, it was a terrifying deadline. Singleness went from just being a state of being to a time-sensitive emergency that you had to deal with right now. All right, so this manufactured anxiety, it created the absolute perfect market for the next major force in this story, big tech. Let's take a look at how modern algorithms literally learned to identify, target, and make a ton of money from loneliness. This whole thing went into overdrive as the real-world places where people could just meet started to disappear. These third spaces, like cafes, community centers, clubs, they vanished, and that created a vacuum. And of course, tech companies rushed in to fill it, replacing these low-pressure community spots with high-pressure, monetized dating platforms. It's kind of creepy, but your phone knows you're single, and it uses that knowledge against you. It bombards you with targeted ads for dating apps, egg freezing, self-help courses, you name it. It carefully curates your social media feed to give you a serious case of FOMO. It even uses sneaky design tricks to create a fake sense of urgency to keep you swiping. The goal is simple. An anxious single person is an engaged user, and an engaged user is a very profitable user. Okay, so after all of that, the economic push, the cultural shaming, the technological manipulation, we have to ask the most basic question of all. Is the solution they're selling even real? Let's look at the actual data on happiness, because it's a pretty inconvenient truth that threatens to tear down this entire engineered story.
So, does it? After all this effort to push us into pairs, does getting into a relationship actually make people happier than being single?
Well, the data is crystal clear, and the answer is no, not really. When you actually control for other life factors, single people report levels of life satisfaction that are nearly identical to their married friends. That whole promised happiness gap, it's basically a myth. In fact, the data shows something even more important. While a great relationship is obviously a wonderful thing, a bad one, which is often what people rush into because of all this pressure, makes them significantly unhappier than if they had just stayed single in the first place. So, if being single isn't the problem and coupling up isn't the guaranteed fix, then what is the real crisis here? Well, it's time to shift the blame away from an individual's relationship status and point it squarely at the system itself. The real issue isn't a singles crisis, it's a loneliness epidemic. And this is a huge structural problem that affects everyone. Single, partnered, it doesn't matter. It's caused by the breakdown of our communities, not by whether or not you have a plus one for a wedding. And when you think about it, focusing on your relationship status is just a convenient distraction. It is so much easier to tell one person to just go find someone than it is for us to turn around and admit that our entire social infrastructure might be fundamentally broken. So, after all of this, the financial penalties, the cultural shame, the algorithmic games, it becomes pretty clear that being single isn't the problem. The only thing that's actually broken is the system that profits from telling you it's a problem in the first place. And that's a question worth thinking about the next time you're scrolling through Instagram or, someone asks why you're still single.